Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, boys. That was very, very, very touching. Thank you. You know, this would be an amazing thing for any fan of the movies, and it is a cosmic treat for me. Exactly 30 years ago, on my first day in Hollywood, I drove a rental car very nervously. A lot of people tooting their horns at this novice Brit. Why you drive on the wrong side of the road, I'll never know, but there you go. I went up to the Griffith Park Observatory, which I knew from the James Dean movie, Rebel Without a Cause, and I had to see it. So I stood there up at the observatory feeling as coolly rebellious and as James Deany as I could. Yeah, I know, use your imagination. You know, I was a kid, this is the city of dreams. And I looked over my shoulder to the Hollywood sign, which felt so close that I could touch it. And then back out across this vast city. It was a mercifully clear day. It had been kissed by the Santa Anas, so it was all clear. And I looked out across the ocean, and I looked out all the way to Catalina, which I could see, and I knew that I was in love. So on my return down Highland, I stopped by here, and as a rite of passage, I walked, moon-faced and awestruck, outside this theater, and I swear to God, I got down on all fours, and I measured my hands and feet against those of all my heroes. And the first thing I learned was that the streets of this city are not always paved with gold, and what it sometimes is paved with requires Purell. But it does. That's okay, though. That's okay. What I also learned, this was a real killer, what I also learned was that I have very, very small feet. Very small feet, which I was devastated. I mean, aside from concerns that my mother might have dallied with a pixie, I knew that my career in movies was clearly over. I mean, before it started, I mean, Jesus, Rin Tin Tin is a dog. He's out here, and he's got bigger feet than I have. So, Billy Crystal made me feel better about this a few years later, because he told me about the big head theory of movie success. He said, this is true, all the successful actors have huge heads. They do, which makes sense because, you know, the close-ups fill the screen more and there's greater impact. So he said, don't worry about your feet, Ken. Your head is enormous. Which I hope he only meant that literally. But, you know, you can't be in a business like this and be here at a moment like this without thinking about where you started. I look at so many friends and pals here. You all come from such varied places. Everybody has a long and interesting journey to get to this spot. So it's very hard to think today of this without thinking of yourself as a kid in Belfast, Northern Ireland, looking at that incredible new device in the corner of the room, the television, playing a black and white documentary about the golden age of Hollywood and the silent movie stars seen arriving here glamorously at a premiere in newsreel footage, and then as a lifelong movie fan to have watched here first run, first weekend movies, here as I made my first Hollywood picture up the street 27 years ago at Paramount, years ago, and then to actually premiere a movie here with Lorenzo, de Bonaventura, Jack Ryan, total thrill. And every time I walked in here, I'd see all of these names on the pavement, and I'd think, wow, what an amazing roll call. So being included in that number is surreal, and it's wondrous. And with all false modesty aside, I can in fact tell you the reasons why, and I'm looking at quite a number of them. From my very first trip to this town, to this latest extraordinary adventure, I have been met with kindness and friendship in a town where many people perhaps would not put those qualities at the top of their list. My experience was different. A lot of great men were responsible for that, but actually, you know, the far greater majority of those who helped and encouraged and hung tough when things did not go so well were women. So I'm going to call a few out. Judy Hoffland, friend and manager for over 20 years, and now a very fine producer. Stacey Snyder, who was a brilliant and championing executive when I was very young, and she was much, much younger. And now one of our industry's greats, and I'm thrilled to say my boss. Emma Watts, who knew way more than I did about Agatha Christie, and whose patience about allowing me to share that knowledge and vision, and who knew how to guide our latest movie to its finish was inspiring. She is our fearless leader. And I'm so proud of what her and her team have done with Murder. Thanks to Heather and Pam and Catherine and Kimberly and Natalie and Melissa. And particularly, I want to thank not a lady, but one of my oldest and dearest Hollywood friends, Ted Galliano, who is one of the reasons that you'll be able to see Murder on the Orient Express in glorious 70mm across this town. It's a town full of amazing creative women from whom I have learned so much, like Ali Sherman, who made, along with Sean Bailey, made Cinderella's dress sparkle for me. Thank you both. Laura Berrick and Becca Kovacic, my glamorous and brilliant managers. And a whole host of others who welcomed me to Tinseltown, including my own amazing team of Tamar and Robert and George and Stephanie and Mark and Wayne and Bibi and Mara and Alex and the greatest of all, my wife, Lindsay Branagh. So it couldn't be more thrilling then to say, in complete defiance of my mother, who said to me once in her Liam Neeson in Taken accent, "Son, if you ever get to Hollywood, I want you to promise me that you will stand up for yourself, that you will be a proud ambassador for the great city of Belfast, and that you will never, ever let anyone walk over you." Well, now, Mum, I'm sorry, but I invite all my friends in Hollywood and the great and glorious general public who make us what we are to walk all over me anytime you want. And enjoy it. Enjoy it. And particularly, if you like Murder on the Orient Express, please do a little dance over me and then work your way through the rest of the cast. They're all here. And every time you do, every time you walk over me, I promise that wherever I am in the world, just like Peter Pan, when he says, "Clap your hands if you believe in fairies," I shall think of you, and I shall say out loud, as if it were by Shakespeare, these lyrics, with joy in my heart, with remembered pride, at this beautiful moment. Hooray for Hollywood, the screwy, ballyhooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan, where any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a fan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good, where anyone at all, from TV's Lassie to Munro's chassis, is equally understood. Go out and try your luck. You might be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood. Hooray for Hollywood. The phony, super coney Hollywood. They come from chili clothes and Paducas with their bazookas to get their names up in lights, all armed with photos from local rotos with their hair in ribbons and legs in tights. Hooray for Hollywood. You may be homely in your neighborhood, but if you think that you can be an actor, see Mr. Max Factor. He'd make a monkey look good. With half an hour, you'll look like Tyrone Power. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for Hollywood.
They're bringing him out.
Yeah, they're